One thing that you said earlier on before we came on air, Tony, was there's a lot of talk around Tottenham because obviously the whole Kane situation and Son signed his extension to his contract this summer. Arsenal, United have made a couple of signings. City in for a couple of players apparently as well. Not a lot of talk around Liverpool. Their defence of the Premier League title was heavily criticised last year. They did have a couple of key injuries that contributed to that, but they still got top four. As we look on the screen right now, your mob, Luis Suarez, is seeing him score some goals there.
Good player, wasn't he?
He was all right, wasn't he?
Wasn't he a good player, especially at Liverpool.
But yeah, you mentioned the fact that Liverpool aren't being spoken about much in terms of the title shake-up. But as a Liverpool fan, you don't mind that. You prefer them to go on the radar, get their business done, and surprise everybody.
I don't want to talk about them.
Well, it's tough. I'm putting to the fore.
Look, they were the champions and a lot went wrong last year. It wasn't only just about injuries. I think certainly the front three didn't quite, even though Salah still got a lot of goals. Mane had a great start to the season. Firmino didn't chip in with the numbers on his stats of goals, but is still a fantastic footballer. It didn't quite happen for them last year. And City look a more complete team. I think Man United, obviously, they got in front. And Liverpool were quite fortunate by the end of the season to get in to that top four because that was for the drop-off of certainly Leicester, who had a number of indifferent results.
West Ham.
Yeah, West Ham slightly dropped off. Chelsea come back with a bit of a run towards the end. So I'm much more optimistic this season, going into this season, because until Van Dijk got injured, Liverpool were top of the league. And once he got injured, and sometimes you can say, it's not about losing one player, but when the player is such a big player, and he was for Liverpool, I think he just everything defensively, and he played a lot of long diagonal balls. He was always opening up attacks by his pass, his quality of pass, and quite often over fullbacks' heads, he could pick out a run by Salah or Mane, and Liverpool would get behind the opposition. He did that regularly for Liverpool, and not only them, Gomez and him. It was also Matip spent a long time injured as well.
If you could sign, I haven't got to name a name, if you want, but if there was a position that you could fill this summer at Liverpool that you feel is the main area they need to strengthen there if they're going to title challenge this season, what position of the pitch would it be?
Well, I would certainly want to bring in a replacement for Wijnaldum, as I touched on earlier, because I think it's vitally important, because the midfield is really the engine room of just stopping the opposition, incredible work rate, and then what happens in front of them is the goal machine of the front three. I think it's vitally important. I hope they don't get into a situation, if they do get injuries defensively, that he might consider midfielders playing at the back. You can do that. I think Fabinho showed he's well capable of doing that. It's not. I don't think they really need a lot. I mean, a lot happened to Liverpool last year. Henderson got injured, Matip was injured, then Gomez and Van Dijk, and I think they're well placed. Generally, the players didn't play as well as the season before. Every position, you felt a little bit of drop off. I mean, look, Trent was fantastic at the end of this season, just gone, and he'd had periods where he had difficulty. He lost his England spot because his performances weren't quite as good as they were the year before. But he set a very, very high bar. They also had keeper out, which is an issue, because I don't think, the young lad, I've forgot his name now, the second goalkeeper, young lad, the Irish boy. Not Gallagher. Anyway, Keller. It was gone. But yeah, I do think they're well placed to mount the challenge. I just don't think it's going to be quite enough to get them over the line this year.
Really? You think that City and maybe Chelsea and maybe United, you think are on their level, if not have a little bit more?
Well, I do feel that Chelsea will get the big transfer down of Haaland.
Okay.
I just got this feeling, and Dortmund has said all along they won't do another. They won't do another after Sanchez, but I just think Chelsea will go, because they won the European obviously won the Champions League with an enormous amount of income coming in, and they've also will do deals to get rid of players that they can lower their wage bill and get a player in of that clout. He's a top player, and I think his age is something that Chelsea are looking at and probably thinking, we don't mind if we pay 30, 40 million over the odds now. We'll get our value back on him. I think it'd be a huge signing for Chelsea if they could get him over the line. That would be as big as any transfer in the world of football. In some ways, I think it'd even be bigger than Kane going to, if he went to Man City. I think Ireland coming to Chelsea, if they could get that over the line, would be an incredible coup.
Just back on Liverpool briefly, what could Liverpool also benefit, and this could apply to other teams, but I'm thinking Liverpool more so, some of their key players had a summer off. So I'm looking at your Manes, your Salahs, Van Dijk has, had a summer off. I know Henderson and Robertson were at the Euros, but they didn't. Bit part. And Robertson only had three games. Could they benefit in that way, in that some of their key players, had 2 months off effectively?
Well, you don't have 2 months off anyway in the modern game because you're training nearly, apart from about a 10-day to 2-week period, you're nearly training full on all year. Yet they'd have done certainly some very, very hard work, endurance, training, plus, physical, gym work. They'd have been doing everything. I think they'll be well placed. I just don't quite know yet what I'm going to see of Liverpool, because I think it's a challenge for Klopp. I think there's been challenges because once you're champions, you're hunted down. You're expected to produce the similar levels. And I hope that front three show how good they can be. I think if they can be the front three they were 18 months ago, and they're all at an age to be as good, they're not old. They're all still, okay, Salah's like late 20s, but Mane probably around 27, 28. But still, they offer a lot. And I think if they fire, then Liverpool have certainly got a chance.